Welcome back to the Successful Survivors podcast. We are survivors. We are your tribe. We are so glad that you're here. And so today we're talking about healthy boundaries. We're talking about no is a complete sentence. And I am the worst possible unqualified person to lead this podcast. So naturally, I'm the one who's leading it. So I have a problem saying no, and I wind up overbooking myself, double booking myself, running myself into the ground to the point that I'm sick. So gosh, do any of my co-podcasters here have some good advice? Oh, Diana.
Pick me.
Yeah, I need some advice.
I'm next.
People like me who say yes to everything, no matter how hard it makes our life. What do we do?
Well, first of all, wait a minute. I feel like I'm the same as you, so maybe I'm not the advice giver. I do have 3 points that I did write down.
Oh, good.
And I was going to close with this, but we can also close with this. So number 1, be assertive. So don't be afraid to say no. And I'm going to give an example of that. Because when you need it, you always feel like if you go to say no, you have to explain the why behind it. You got to go, okay, and you got to make an excuse. No, I can't because I got, you have so many, and you're like, you don't have, no, it doesn't matter. Like a friend of mine today, and this is a perfect example. So my friend today asked me yesterday 2 things. She asked, hey, can you come over and watch my dog? Because, at 3:00 in the afternoon, and I always watch her dog, because my husband can't, well, I'm traveling, I can't get there. And I always say yes every single time. I said no, and I had no choice. I had to visit 8 cities, drop off all of my client gifts, to all the 8 cities, from Santa Ana to Irvine to RSM to Torrico Canyon, Mission Viejo, Lake Forest, San Clemente. Like I had everywhere to be. And you know how, that's spread out. So I was doing that from 12 p.m. to 7:30 last night.
Oh.
So I didn't have any time. When I said no, I actually was okay to say no. And I felt horrible. And I did do a little explanation. I said, girl, I'm dropping off client gifts. I'm not going to be able to do it. She was fine with that. Her second ask was in the evening. She says, hey, listen, Kevin won't be here tomorrow. I'm going to be selling a chair. Can you please come here at 8, I think it was 9:00 in the morning. Now, we're recording our podcast at 10:25. Can you be here at 9 a.m.? Please bring your gun. I don't know this man. I'm going to be by myself. Sorry, I carry. It is what it is. So she was worried. She's like, I just want somebody else here just in case it goes sideways. And I say this, I will back up really quickly. She's had two people come to her house, 3 people actually, to break into her home. She lives in Monarch Beach, right off of Crown, and PCH in a community that is amazing. It's a community. It's an affluent community. Okay, she lived there, and yet people are trying to break into her home. There's just no reason for it at all. This is the life we live, and unfortunately, I'm getting off track. My point is, I went over at 9 a.m. this morning, and I was just with her. Very nice gentleman showed up, bought the chair, all good, no harm, no foul. She made me a latte. I came home. I'm here on time. I was able to do that. I, like you, Rhonda, overbook flight. Number 1, be assertive. Be assertive. Don't be afraid to say no. And no is a complete sentence, ladies, as we know, right? Number 2, prioritize self-respect. Setting boundaries with a simple no is an act of self-respect. That's interesting. That was interesting to me when I learned that. I was making someone else feel bad, but it's actually putting yourself first, and it's your own self-respect, and it's a way of valuing your own time, energy, and well-being. So it's super, super important. And 3, communicate clearly. Use the firm no, You can improve relationships, reduce all the misunderstandings that we tend to have, with the vague, well, I'd like to, and then, we can, just say no, it's okay. And try not to feel bad, and just be clearly, effectively expressing your words, and don't overcomplicate it. I tend to overcomplicate because I want to make all the excuses and, oh my God, la, la, la. It's very, very simple. Those three things.
Diana, I love those three things, and I am so glad you didn't have to shoot anybody today. That is really, really good.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, people, you gotta be vigilant. I just want to make sure that nobody's going to hurt my friend or myself.
No, listen, I'm locked and loaded. I don't have a problem with your concealed carry. My issue is just like, if you're a crook, are you going to break into a house in like a normal house where it looks like they're, like normal people trying to just barely keep the lights on and put food on the table? Or are you going to strategically choose somebody who looks like they live in a super affluent community and they drive a, fancy car, whatever? Like, if you're going to steal, that's where they're going to steal from. So it's kind of just a logical thing. I'm not explaining away bad behavior. It's just that, that is where we live right now. Like, people are suffering and they're looking for, what can I do to feed my family? It's hard. It's all hard.
Yeah.
But back to no. Gosh, I just wonder what you have to say, Dawn. Look how I'm saving Ms. I can't even say it, LMSW for last. Dawn,
that blows all the water there. So I kind of went a little bit differently than you, Diana. And kind of, I think I loved all of yours. I loved all of them. But I think for me, I'm trying to learn how to be more simplified and go back to the basics and understanding of things. So I wrote down I wrote more than three things, but I will just share three. I wrote down, know your values. Know what you value, and does it line up with what you're doing throughout the day? And having that kind of write your values out, and kind of know what they are, so that you can say your best yes to the best things that you're supposed to do that day. And then it might be simpler to be assertive and to say no when you need to be. And then also
say that's priorities also, right? Know your values, and your priorities during the day, what you have to accomplish that day. Got it.
Yeah. You kind of did like an overarching thing. I kind of went a little bit, I don't know, different. But we're all different, so that's why it makes that awesome, right? And then also, like, we teach people how to give us respect and how to treat us. So, like you said, if you're explaining the no, then you're not really showing that you have strong self-respect for yourself. But you can say, no, I can't do that. I apologize. Or maybe you don't apologize. So just having that, like, you learning that you can teach people how to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, how do you view yourself? What is your self-talk? And I kind of went a little on the other side of, predators look for those weak people, right? So like in that book, what is that book? I can remember the name. The one you guys told me about with
The Gift of Fear. Gift
yes,
of Fear.
Yes, that book where she was doing the groceries, and this random dude come helped her, and she said no multiple times, and then she did the explaining, or she's, oh, okay, well, no, know yourself. What is your self-talk? Be able to be assertive, to prioritize. And so that those people who are weak are like kind of looking to see how, oh, you're by yourself. You're a little bit weak already, right? Vulnerable. No, thank you. I don't need your help. Have a great day. Right? Just be firm and serve, and sometimes almost kind of downright mean, and depending on who it is, depending on the situation, right? Yeah. Practice saying no to small things, right? So, like, say, Diana, you're going to go to the gym. You plan to go from 1 to 2. Your friend calls up, hey, you want to go to lunch? What are you going to say? If you haven't seen this friend in a while and she picked your favorite spot.
I mean, are you really asking? I always say yes.
But I'm saying if we practice saying no to people that know us,
Yeah.
and it might be a little more easier to be assertive to those that we don't know very well, and we can just be like, no.
Yeah.
So, or me,
Dawn, I
I
just
one
have to
thing
say
I
that
was,
going to lunch over going to the gym was probably not a good thing. Because I'm like, oh, yeah,
I mean,
I will
true.
always pick.
I
I
always
got one for
I
you,
always-
or I got one for you, Rhonda. You're gonna go. You plan to read this, catch up on this book you want to finish, right? And someone asks you to lunch or dinner, you can be like, no, I'm gonna go read my book. But my point in that, no matter what it is, my point in that is you respect yourself, like she was talking about, prioritizing herself and being assertive because you already plan that in your schedule. So if you're saying yes when you should be saying no to small things, it's going to be harder to do the things that we need to say no to.
I know, I get it. I was just teasing you.
well,
I know.
I mean,
I just want to silence it. No.
remember, I'm a child. Everything I do is like a child. So I over responsibilities. So when you say gym to me is a responsibility to myself, right? That is a responsibility to myself.
Yes.
I consider it a responsibility. So when my friend Debbie says, hey, you want to go to lunch today? I'm like, yes, because I'm the child that picks the fun things over the things I have to do. So I will always say yes to that. It's just,
Okay. Yes. All right. So I think very bad example. I have two more things really quick. The other one I had was a generalization of what you're going to do when you're going out to friends, or you have a meeting or whatever it is. How long are you going to stay? How are you feeling about the meeting, right? Like, how is your attitude and your emotions, right? Because sometimes when we're emotional, we're weaker. That's where it's harder to say no. So kind of just have a generalized guideline of kind of what that's going to look like and what time you actually want to leave, because you want to go to dinner or you want to go read your book, or you've had a really long day and tomorrow's going to be even longer and you need some space to breathe, right? Last thing was remind yourself that boundaries keep you safe.
oh,
right?
I love that one. Yes.
So maybe it's remind yourself that boundaries keep you safe.
Ooh.
Right? Because we don't want to do a boundary because we're like, wait a minute, we want to go to lunch, we want to go to dinner. But this is a whole other thing, right? Like if we practice saying no to those people that love us, when someone else is trying to help us with groceries, we don't know them. I'm going to keep myself safe. No thanks.
Yeah. That's really good.
That's I think my favorite one. That is my favorite one. Remember or remind yourself that boundaries keep you safe. That is so important.
All of that was really, really good. My goodness. Okay. Okay, Amber, what do you have to say to us?
How do I go past that? I mean, those are so good that you guys have, because they totally make sense in that day-to-day realization and simplicity of just knowing that it's okay to say no is just so important. And that's what you three are talking about. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be deep to say no. And sometimes we think there has to be this huge justification and this big thought and realization to say no, and there doesn't. So stop being so complicated for the simple no. Is probably the first thing I would say. And then, I have to think of a wonderful way to present this. So I was thinking, you all are saying the word no as in KNOW versus no like NO. And it's the same word, but totally different meaning. We usually know with a K when we should say no with an N. But we don't take that second to realize how we feel, how our body is, what our actual immediate response should be. So taking that breath, which in that book she's talking about, it talks about that intuition, but also just connecting with ourselves for a second. I mean, it's the last person we're with at the end of the day anyway. And so connecting with ourselves and saying, I know is my answer no. And then you can try to figure out maybe the why behind it. But sometimes we don't need a why at that moment to say no. That's really important to me.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
So we can, in that instance, go with our feeling. Like if we don't have a great feeling about it, And
Yes.
so many things I think I've thought in my lifetime that I've like tried to train myself not to make emotional decisions, right? To really think through and be logical about things. So it's kind of like a planet shift for me going, oh, wait, I can actually say no just because I feel like it and not have.
Yeah. Well, and you got to be careful with the word feel because, the emotions have a reason. And so emotions with that, we call it, sometimes they call it intuition or that thought. It may be tied to emotion, may not. But either way, it's an instinct in your body, or it's just you wanting to say no to something. And we have the right to that. We have the worth to say, I don't want to spend $10 at Starbucks. I will use my 25 cents in my front room called the kitchen, but you and I can use $1 for gas to catch up and say hi next time. That's okay. A big way I think of no is, if I'm going to say yes, I need to have a why. And the why needs to be for some degree of my well being. It doesn't mean it's for me, it doesn't mean it's conceited, but I enjoy being around Diana. So I'm going to probably say yes to a lot more things with her because I love being around her. She's hilarious, cracks me up, love talking to her. So I'm going to say yes a little bit more with her because I feel good about me when I'm around her. But if somebody comes up and asks me, do you want to go do this, or do you want to take this responsibility at work? I have to think. I encourage people to stop and think before I say yes. What is the reason I'm saying yes? Is it to please that person? Is it to make them happy or an opinion of me? Or is it because something I enjoy, I value, or I'm good at?
Ooh,
Why am I going to say yes? And if I don't have a justifiable reason, my answer is no.
ooh.
Mm.
I'm just okay. This is one of those times where, like, I just stop and I stay, and like the conversation can go on, but I won't go on with it because I'm actually thinking about all the times in my life that I said yes to keep somebody from being mad at me. And I
Yes.
know, because I'm kind of a grammar nut, that dogs go mad. People don't get mad. People get angry. But it's a little girl way of thinking of things. I don't want you to be mad at me. So I don't say that anymore. But inside of my heart, my mind, like it's not even a conscious thing. I didn't really think of it until you just said that. Is my yes to please the other person? And I automatically went to, oh my goodness, a lot of my yeses are, I don't want you to be disappointed with me. I don't want you to be angry with me. I don't want you to think less of me. I don't want you to think I'm unable to do it. I want you to think I'm large and in charge and I'm able to do whatever it is need to be done. And so why do I have to keep proving all of that to whomever there's nobody I need to prove it to.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what else did you
The
say,
struggle is
Amber?
real.
Amber, what else did you say? Okay, is it something I enjoy to please others? I feel like to please the other person. You said one more thing.
Am I good at it?
Oh, yeah.
Something I value or good at. Yeah. Mhm. I think about it at like work a lot, and I go through these cycles because Rhonda, I'm like you, in the child abuse area, and those of us that are in this podcast, we have experiences that have given us those beliefs very young in our ages, and so it's a constant battle. And so I call it seasons. Like I go through seasons where I've said yes way too much, and I have to backtrack and say, okay, I was trying to maybe please those people, or I didn't want them disappointed. Well, first of all, it's not really in our control anyway. They control how they react. We can't. And secondly, I have to backtrack and say, okay, I've been living in that thought process of my childhood or my beliefs and just bringing it to the forefront and saying, all right, now I get to go back and set some limits. I'm not doing that project at work anymore. I'm not driving you to work every day for free. I'm not bringing you food every week for the rest of my life. And I start putting those boundaries up. So we might go through seasons where we're really, really good at saying yes when we shouldn't, and we just have to take that power back and reconstruct those limits. And that's an okay thing too.
Ooh.
You know, that's funny. Kind of on that a little. I need to say, because I want it to be known, I do like saying yes. I get enjoyment by helping others. This morning, I went over to help my friend. I could have been happy here having breakfast, but I enjoy helping others. She needed something. It makes me feel good if I'm able to do something for someone else. So I have to just recognize, like this right here. Is it something I value? Is it something I'm good at? Am I trying to please the other person? I wasn't trying to please her in that moment. I was literally wanting to be of service. I love to serve people. I love to help people, right? So, but we just have to make sure, to Dawn's point, respecting ourselves, prioritizing our values, prioritizing our day. Does it fit in? Does it align with that? Am I still able to do all those things that I need to do for me first, and also still help others, which also helps me feel good about myself and, whatever, you know what I mean? So that, I think, plays into all that.
Yeah. And I get super frustrated, and I have the realization I've been probably saying too many yeses when I'm overworked and feel more stress than joy in what I'm doing. I might be doing the same amount of work or the same amount of relationship time. It may not even be work. It's just commitments to other people. Holidays are hard about this. And when I start feeling stress rather than joy in what I'm doing, I have to take a step back and say, whoa, how many yeses have I given that maybe shouldn't have been a yes? Because now I'm not feeling good about who I am in this. Instead, I am lost in not healthy boundaries and not setting good limits with people. And then the last thing I kind of thought in my mind when you guys were saying this is, when you think of your best relationship in your life, your favorite person to be around, it may be a spouse, a significant other, a family member, a friend, Diana, Don, Rhonda, it might be you guys. For me, I mean, when you think about these people, are you submissive in that relationship? Or is one of the coolest things is when you get to say no to them because they know you inside and out. Like, you can trust them to tell you if that's not their thing. Like that, you value that in your closest relationship. So in that idea, nobody really wants us to always be saying yes. Our part in building a good relationship is our ability to say no. Our best relationships are those where we can trust that you will say no to me if you don't like that. Does that make sense?
Good.
And yes, and being trusted and knowing that I can trust you if I know that you know my heart, and we're good.
Yes. Yeah, you and I would not be as good of friends as we are if you always said yes to me, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, she's just pleasing me to please me. She's not really my friend. It's not that value relationship.
Yeah.
I would have to add that I've had people in Michigan, people would not tell me no. They would just ignore me. When I got to Georgia, people were more honest, and I was like, you're driving me crazy. Stop being so honest with me. And then I come back and I'm like, no, those people showed love to me. Those people showed respect to me by telling me no, or telling me, hey, Dawn, you're being a butthead right now. Stop it. Right? Like, other people just did not. You're not going to use a different word, but there you go. So I got really frustrated with people who started doing that. I'm like, why are you doing that? But I learned kind of what you just said, that real people in your life that care about you, that really love you, are going to give you that yes and no, and maybe some other added things in there that you don't really want to hear, but you need to hear.
If I'm at this podcast, and then Rhonda, I'll let you talk on that. If I'm wearing something, or I have something on my face or something behind me, I expect you all to say, whoa, don't do that. Don't show don't wear that. Don't say that. Don't be the Amber, catch that. That's what it is about sometimes saying no to things. And so always, yes, you're beautiful. Yes, that looks great on you. Yes, talk about that. It's the healthy thing sometimes of being able to say no. Okay, Rhonda, I kept interrupting you.
True. No, it's all good. I was just going to say you and I were on the same wavelength because I'm thinking I want people to tell me if I have lettuce in my teeth. I don't, like a real friend doesn't let you walk around with a piece of hair sticking straight out or your zipper down or whatever, right? Or, a button missing and you don't realize that you have this gaping thing. We have to be good friends to each other, to ourselves.
Bat in the cave, Rhonda. Bat in the cave.
Oh, code words. Hey, everybody, we just established a new code word. I was unaware of it, but bat in the cave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bat in the cave. Just bat in the cave.
Take care of
Good to
whatever
know.
out of your nose. That's what that means. Okay, so this is all so good. You guys are so smart. And one of the best things we can do in our lives is surrounding ourselves with people who are smarter than we are. So I try really hard to do that. I nailed it with you guys. So the only thing that I think I can really add is really, you guys have all touched on this, and I have 4 pages of notes. One of the things that I heard in different ways from each of you is, and I think Dawn, I can't find where the way you said it, but the idea of figuring out what our yes should be according to our purpose. Okay, you guys all know my personal podcast is Find Your Purpose Now, and it like I've had an epiphany as I'm sitting here listening to all of you, because I'm thinking, okay, I have to start living my own words, that every time I say yes to something, it means I said no to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of sitting down or taking a minute, I think you said this, Amber, about like, take a minute before you say yes, really think about it. And I'm thinking, okay, if I stop and think, and for me, it would involve prayer. Okay, am I supposed to say yes to that? Like for me, for example, it might be, I get invited 4 months from now to do a speaking engagement, and it's in Siberia, Timbuktu, or whatever. And it sounds so good.
Say no.
Right? Okay, you sound exactly like my husband. He says, "Does anybody ever invite you to speak where it doesn't involve taking a plane, a train, an automobile, a scooter, like it's a 11-hour trip to go to some place, that it's like nobody ever has any event where they invite me where it's 5 minutes from the airport." So I say yes because I'm like, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. This is so exciting. I love it. I love the reason you're doing it. I get all into it. I say yes. The day I'm supposed to go, where now I am faced with a 5-hour drive, and all the stuff that is involved with it, that's when I go, dang, I wish I would have actually taken a second, thought about it, thought it through, figured out all the other things that I would not be able to do because I'm doing this. And like a speaking engagement is not 11 hours, it's 20 minutes, it's 30 minutes. So to take 11 hours to go for 30 minutes and 11 hours back, it's a whole day, right? And I think that kind of what we're talking about, it's not just speaking engagements. Amber, it's like you said, I'm not going to deliver food to your house once a week for the rest of my life. A lot of the things that we say yes to, it's not 20 minutes, it's not 30 minutes. It winds up, if you really sit down and figure out what we just said yes to, it's a lot of time. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't find their purpose and live their purpose and have the joy and the amazing life that comes along with it, the healthy relationships, all the good stuff that goes along with living your purpose. The reason why we don't is we get distracted. We say yes when we probably shouldn't. And I'm the worst one. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I think we all are. Yeah, the struggle, but knowing also, if we do say yes, that we can redefine that, and we can go back and we can correct a yes with maybe a no, or at least with a boundary. Like, listen, I'm going to do this. I know I told you I would be bringing food endlessly. However, I've decided I needed to set a limit on that, and I'm going to do it for 2 more weeks. And that's on my boundary. And so even if you feel like, or sometimes I do that, I'm like, I'm a committed person. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, when I say yes, it means yes all the way. I'm all the way in or I'm all the way out. It's no in between, which really, really sucks, because that puts a lot of pressure of when I've said yes, because I'm fully committed, right? But sometimes we have to retract and say, I'm going to set a boundary on that, though, because I'm going to fulfill what's going to give me that worth and commitment, but I'm also going to respect myself, my time, my value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what, going back to Diana, what you said about your third thing was communicate clearly. And when you said that, that was another time that I basically stopped and you guys went on. Because I'm thinking about the bazillion times that I said yes, but I didn't put the boundary around it, Amber, like you just said. Like, I didn't communicate clearly. Yes, I'd love to do that. I'll do that for 2 weeks, or I'll do that on this day. But not putting any boundary around it, I can totally see now where another person can hear me and automatically assume that I just said yes forever, and then get upset, because this is where, like, the whole relationship communication thing, and this is something that I think you said, Dawn, when we don't really clearly communicate it, and that's where, when there's ambiguity and the other person thinks you just said yes for the rest of your life, you think you just said yes to one day, and now this person's not happy that you came for one day. They're disappointed. They're let down. They're offended. They're angry, whatever their emotion is. And you're over here going, I gave you a day out of my life. Like, how there's no gratitude at all. You're angry. So this is where a lot of conflict can be, when we don't communicate clearly.
Right.
Go for it, Dawn.
And Dawn, I'm going to give an example real quick, and then I'm going to give that to you. I wanted to say, sometimes we do it in action, but sometimes it's in maybe our words as well. And we begin to say yes without an action, without an intended verbal action, like going out and doing something. It's just being, maybe the word is submissive or reliant on another person. Example that I have is when I used to work in a pretty intense job in child welfare, I would have some very upset, hurt people. And so I would get a phone call from a parent and they would be cussing the snot out of me. Not that anybody who's listening here has ever had anybody cuss at them, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe a few times. And I would think of this as, do I say, is this a boundary? Is this a yes or a no? Because if I sit there as she or he is calling me names, using derogatory language, and I do not hang up that phone, do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes. Talk to me that way. Yes. I'm going to listen when you treat me that way. Yes. And I do not want to say that verbally or non-verbally. I do not want to say that I deserve that treatment no matter what, even though you're angry. So I would say, I'm sorry you're feeling that way and they're still going. Give me a call back when we can manage this conversation. Thank you. Click.
Oh, boom.
And it's because I want to say no. And my intuition, my feelings, my body, my everything needs to say no. And that is my no. And so doing that in that way is so important as well, because that's setting our boundaries of our relationships.
I think
And that gives us work.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think that's such a great example of what you were saying, Dawn, about, wasn't it, you said this, Dawn, about we teach people how to treat us. Yeah, that's an exceptional example, because we've all been in situations where, you know, somebody's upset about whatever and they're taking it out on us, whether it even has anything to do with us or not. But yeah, standing there and taking it is literally training that person on how to treat us. Dawn, what did you have to say?
In a little bit different direction, but I wanted to touch on you, because you do this so well. You also talk about minding the lessons, right? Mm-hmm. So as childhood, you know, people who've gone through childhood abuse, we didn't have the language or the emotionalness to understand what happened, but they were teaching us, like you said, Amber, at a young age, that our body is not ours. Anybody can do anything with it, right? So learning, like going back and learning what maybe some of those things that we got when we were kids that were told to us and we didn't understand it. I might have said that really bad, and I'm sorry if I did. I see all your faces, so I don't know what I said.
No,
good.
No.
Keep going.
Okay,
love it. Keep going. Same.
Yeah. So realizing that some of the things that we do, and not being able to say yes, and not being able to say no, and the body language, all of that, we learned it somehow ingrained into us when we were a child, and didn't have the language to say it. So I forgot to say it earlier, but as I was looking through that, I'm looking at somehow my brain works at looking at all the beginning stuff. So I'm like, okay, God, how did I even get to that, where it was hard for me to say no? Where did I learn that from? You know, who taught me that? Well, this person who abused me, this person who was mean to me, this person who did nothing. Right? We just talked about just standing there and taking it. Someone who was a standby person who did nothing. They all taught me when I was younger. And now I have to unlearn that, which is another thing that makes us angry. Right? So, yeah. So I don't really know where I'm going with all that, but that was something that came to my mind as well.
Okay, that was huge, humongous. Huge.
That was huge.
This is where it all started. You are so right. We got it in our heads before we even had words, before we had context, before we had perspective. You are here to do whatever I say. You're here for my pleasure, not yours. You're here, you know, that was the message for a lot of us, if not all of us.
Diana's not laughing. She froze.
She's frozen. She's frozen laughing. If you're going to freeze laughing, right? Diana, can you? Oh, there she goes.
I think she'll
she's coming back. Here she is.
What happened? Was that mine?
You froze.
It's so funny. I could see myself doing this. Everybody was frozen. I'm like, hello, y'all froze. What happened? Where are we at?
Oh no, you froze.
You were frozen like this.
You were laughing, frozen.
You were serious. I'm like, guys, she's not laughing.
Okay. I have to say that was the best visual of what Dawn was just talking about, which scientifically is 7 years old and younger, where we cannot put words to something. And like for a moment there, we are the brain, and Diana was that moment, that thought, because she was froze.
I can't wait till you edit this.
Visual.
And that is there. Do not get rid of that. I implore you. I'm dying right now, which, by the way, okay, that's beautiful. I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see how that turns out. I have to say, Dawn, I don't know how my remarkable turned weird, but that was so beautiful. I love that you said that. I loved that you said that, because that was a realization. And we've talked about this for years and years. But for what my brain does is it takes that little nugget, it throws it back there, and it's like buried under all these other things. So I didn't remember until literally right now when you said, we learned a long time ago, our bodies are not our own. Like that's what we learned. It's not true. Lies, lies, lies. They are ours. But somebody taught us this is not yours. It is mine. It is mine to do with what I want, whether it's verbally, physically, sexually, whatever trauma we all have dealt with, or anybody listening has dealt with. We were taught that it's not. And that carried through high school for me, my first job, my second job, my 10th job, whatever, throughout my life. My 10 years ago with my broker who was, who violated me, all of these things, they carry through and you're frozen. So just because I was in that moment 45 years old, that's 12 years ago. Wow. But 45 years old, you still believe it because that's what you were taught. And it's so funny that it comes back and you just, oh, good stuff. I love this one. This podcast is everything. Love it.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I talked a lot though. So I wanted to add an example of the frozen thing. So I have this thing where I do not hang out with men, single or married, but especially not married. I don't go and hang out with them. I don't talk to them. I don't give car rides because it doesn't look right. And I don't do it. I let my guard down one time. My friend said, "Oh, I'll be back in about an hour, half hour, and it'll be fine." So I went, and nothing physically or sexually happened, but the conversation turned very inappropriate. And I was 36, totally capable of moving my body, totally capable of getting up and knowing I should go. It was very inappropriate. And my head's going yelling, going, go, move. My body was like, I don't remember how to do anything. It was awful. And so I say that because the value thing, I let my guard down. I like compromised and something more could have happened. Thankfully it didn't, but that was scary enough. I got re-traumatized all over again because I let my guard down. I said my yes, and I should have said no. Said, you know what, if you're not going to be there, I'm not coming either. Let's do it another day. So I would have to say to our listeners that know your values, and stick to them because there's a reason that you have them and they're going to keep you safe.
That was beautiful.
So glad that you shared that, Dawn. I think that successful survivors, well, everybody has to be aware of their situation and their surroundings and the people and all that kind of stuff. But survivors, I think more so than anybody else, we really, really have to, I don't want to say be hyper vigilant because I'm already hyper vigilant and that's not always a good thing, but we have to really pay attention to not allow ourselves to get into situations that take us right back to difficult experiences or that could, like your rule. I fully get your rule. I don't offer rides to men. I won't take a ride from a man. Like if somebody's offering to pick me up at the airport or whatever, I always ask if the wife will it be the wife? Will it be the husband and wife? If it's both of them, great. If it's just the husband, no. And I'm even kind of weird about getting in an Uber or whatever, because I really don't know that person. But then that says a lot about my age.
Not the same way.
Because if somebody would have said in 1975, okay, in the future, we're going to have this thing where you're just going to have some random person come to your house so they know where you live. And they also know that you're leaving. You're leaving with a suitcase and nobody's home. And we're going to go ahead and just get in the car with that random person like it's nothing. We don't know if they're a drug addict. We don't really know anything about them, if they're a safe driver, but we're just going to get in like it's nothing. I would have said, put down the crack pipe. That's never going to happen. And now look at us all jumping right in those Uber cars and whatever other Lyft and whatever, all that stuff. So yeah, Yeah, don't go by me as far as predicting the future, because
You know what my friend does, one of the ones actually who had me come over today, what she has me do, or she travels a lot for work and she takes Uber everywhere. But I am the second it's programmed in her Uber app, by the way, which everyone can do, is you program it to notify a person, your person, to say, hey, and it always says, it's so funny because she can be in wherever the state, wherever it is. And it'll say, so-and-so is catching a Uber to blah, 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 or a Lyft to blah, blah, blah. Her ride is there. She's on the way. And then it'll say, so-and-so has made it to her destination. And every time I get the notification, I immediately text her and say, got you, every time, because it notifies me.
I love that. Yeah. So note to everybody, when you get in an Uber, it'll ask you, or it asks me, but there's a setting in there where you can say share your information. And I always, not that I do it that often, but when I do, I always click share with Nick Shortino, because he's like you, Diana. He just will flat get there.
Yeah.
Or make sure that law enforcement gets there. Like, you
100%.
need we all need a person, I mean, that's really, I know we're here talking about boundaries and saying no and all that stuff, but we're getting close to wrapping up. And I think one thing that is really important to say is, if we say no to the things that we really probably shouldn't be doing, say yes to the things that we should be doing in our life, that we want to do, that reflect our values, that move us closer to the fulfillment of the purpose for our lives. What happens is we do attract good people into our lives. And that's not, I'm not trying to be like new agey wadu dadu, like attracting la la la. But the reality is, when you are yourself, when you really are your authentic self, then people who like you and think you're a hoot and a half will just want to be with you. They want to spend time with you. And people who don't like you, let her rip. I mean, let them just go, because there's 7 billion people on earth, more than that, and they're not all going to like us. So when you say yes to the right things, you attract the people in your life that should be in your life. And one of them will be the person that you share your Uber ride with on the app, and they will get you. Like, if they'll be able to watch and see, ooh, the car stopped right here. That's not where the car's supposed to stop. And a good person who really has your back, like Diana Mosher, will call 911 and they will dispatch them right out there to where that car is. And don't we all want somebody to save us when we're in a pickle? And all of us survivors, we've been in a pickle. We know what it's like. And we would never, ever, ever be okay with leaving somebody in a dangerous situation. No successful survivor I know would ever turn their back on somebody who's being mistreated. We step in. That's what we do. So,
Rhonda,
into a
in
halt,
simple words, yes. And Rhonda, with that, in simple words, I think of it as know, like KNOW, know your no's, and you'll have success with the yes. Know your no's.
That. Look at her dropping rhymes.
Know your NOs, and you'll have success.
Yep. Success with the yeses. You got it, Rhonda. And I just think that's such a simple way to think of it, because we need simple. We don't want to be overcomplicated, like I said earlier, and just getting familiar and confident with the no's. You're going to be revived. You're going to live out the yeses in the great, beautiful ways you were just talking about. So.
Oh, it's so good, Amber. You're so good at coming up with stuff like that. I'm telling you, everybody, if you ever need to talk to somebody, call Amber Jewell. She does all kind of, therapy and coaching and all that kind of stuff from anywhere on Zoom. Hey, Dawn, what are your final thoughts?
You're going to love this. It's totally me. I'm saying it too.
Do it.
So if you don't have anyone that likes you, or you don't feel like anyone likes you, meet a dog or a cat. Mostly a dog.
I'm not dogging that idea. I love it.
Thank you.
There it is.
Thank you.
There it is.
I guess my final thought is re-listen to this, of course, because we have so much good information. But also know that you can add your own stuff to it, right? Your own thoughts, your own, values, your own. But also get together with a group, or 2 or 3 friends or something. Listen to this and figure out ways that you can have each other's back, because we all need that. We all need someone, like you said. You already said that. So I guess that would be my last thing. So practice saying no to the little things, so that when the bigger things come, that word's already common, right? It's already out there, and it'll be easier to be assertive, like Diana Mosier said back there. Be assertive and to be able to prioritize. So
I love that. I'm so glad you said that. Everybody, we want to hear your comments. Put your comments under this video, and we promise you, we will read every single comment. We'll respond to you. We'll incorporate what you have to say in future podcasts, and maybe in a future podcast, you come and join us. So, okay, Diana, what are your final thoughts?
I just want to go back to what I had said. Just though, number 1, be assertive. Number 2, prioritize self-respect. And number 3, communicate clearly. I think those are the really, really huge key things. And when Dawn said, watch this with a group of people, rewatch this, rewatch it. The Gift of Fear, that book that I read, I have read that book, listened to the audiobook so many times. So same with this podcast. Listen to it with friends, get with that group, and pick people. Have them be your tribe. Have them be your people. Hey, I got to get in an Uber, sending my ride with you, sharing it. And yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And it's not too late to find your tribe. I'm
That's right.
44. I'm going to be 44 next month. And you all are part of my tribe, but you're not in my close proximity, right? You're not right where I need somebody. I have people now that I can call them. We talk about whatever. Need something, you're there. So it's never too late. So I don't even want to hear that complaint in the thing, because I'm going to remind you of this. There you go.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Amber, did you have any final thoughts? Or you already gave awesome final thought.
Yeah, mine was kind of knowing your no and success with the yes. And I just want to mimic what everybody else said already. Knowing the information that's here, and giving yourself grace as you do this. I guess that would be my other thing, is that it is hard. The challenge is real. The struggle is real with this. And so one step at a time, and giving yourself grace as you work on setting those boundaries and limits, and really discovering the true worth you have on your inside.
Oh my goodness, that's so good. Okay, you guys, I just love each of you, and we are so grateful that you join us for these podcasts. We're going to keep going, and I want you to come back every single time. I hope you subscribe and share this with other people who are survivors of any kind of childhood trauma. In fact, really any kind of trauma at all at any point. I think this is all good for. Some of the topics that we have coming up are so juicy. Do not miss them. It's going to be really good. We're all in this together. And survivors of trauma, we're stronger together because we get each other. So come back, join us, subscribe, share it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for being here today.
Bye.